Vincent Canby of the New York Times called this movie a lightweight, breezy experience that, by never pretending to be anything more than what it is, disarms criticism. Letterboxd user Keaton Lost in Your Ears said this movie should be used in a court case against Chevy Chase and the producers of this movie for murdering the art of synth. Chevy Chase is on the cover of the movie, and that makes sense because he is the only character that has any good lines. But in all honesty, a synthesizer should be right behind him. There is never a 20-minute segment in this movie that goes without an irritating synth blaring over the movie to keep there from being dead air. It might be the most annoying soundtrack ever committed to a movie. And of its sequel, Mark Kermode of Time Out said, the humor throughout is alternately mindless, sexist, racist, and homophobic, and would probably offend if you managed to stay awake. On this episode of Ruined Childhoods, we decide the fate of Fletch.
Sequel. Reboot. Which one will it be? It's the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
Greetings, Starfighters.
Hi, Dan. How's it going?
Hi. It's going all right, John. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm wearing like a black t-shirt and like a gray shirt over it, and you're wearing this like Hawaiian shirt with a white shirt under it. We're like spy versus spy, kind of. I'm in a dark room. You're in a very bright room.
This is true. This is all very true. But yeah, it's whatever. It's the mental state.
Hey man, we're getting into the summertime. I have to get onto I have to start getting onto your wave.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you got to get the Aloha shirt out and just get yourself going. I got my little homemade little dad necklace.
Oh, what is that?
That I got. It's my daughter Chloe, age 7, made it, and it says it's dad, and there's like 2 very small D beads and then a big A in the middle.
Oh, all right.
So,
well, we all know about a big A in the middle. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So this is Ruined Childhoods, and you're listening to it, everybody. We talk about cult and classic movies, what we would do with them these days if we were to bring them back, if we had crazy money to throw at something, and we decided, you know what? Let's do something with Fletch.
Well, and we wouldn't be the first to say that. It's, as we'll discuss.
We'll get there.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we're talking about Fletch today, and of the sequel, Fletch Lives. So, we'll be digging into that. But John, before we do you have anything to add? One more things
about my cousin Vinny?
About my cousin Vinny? About anything we've covered?
I don't really think so. I was just, this is more of a general thing. And I know that, I texted you last night with a question, but we're getting into a phase right now where COVID is still a thing. We're recording this in May of 2021. COVID is still a thing. Dan and I are both vaccinated, and people are, places are starting to open back up. And I started to think, like, am I ready to maybe go into a movie theater again? And I feel like for me, it would be the kind of thing where I would certainly be excited to try it out. But if I felt uncomfortable, I would leave.
Yeah. I know like some places are relaxing the mask mandates, but I kind of don't want to sit through a movie with my mask on, but I also don't necessarily like it. It depends on the theater. And honestly, there's not much
out. The only thing playing in theaters right now that I would want to see in a theater is a movie from 10 years ago, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, there's a lot of places who are, they are showing older movies, movies that are having like anniversaries and things like that, where they're re-releasing them, or there's, specialty theaters that do showings like this. I am actually, a part of an organization out here in Portland called the Northwest Film Center, and we do that kind of stuff all the time. We're trying to figure out a drive-in theater situation for this summer, and of course there's going to be a lot of like throwback movies and that type of situation.
Well, it's the 30th anniversary of all the movies that came out in 1991, which, if I get started, I won't stop. Soap Dish, The Rocketeer, Terminator 2,
T2.
Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with, warts and all, Silence of the Lambs, there's JFK, Bugsy, Cape Fear, The Fisher King.
Right.
I could keep going.
Yeah.
Barton Fink.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that could potentially be right there. I don't think there's anything that's out. I would love to see the movie Nobody with Bob Odenkirk, which I believe is now streaming. But I feel like that would be a good going back to the movies type of movie. There's a movie right now called Together, which I think now is also streaming with Ed Helms and Patty Harrison. And Patty Harrison, who I think is one of the funniest people on the planet right now. And if you don't follow her on social media, I highly recommend it. She's absolutely insane in all of the best ways. And so this is not, I think, a outrageous comedy, but she is one of the starring roles in it, and I'm very excited to see her in that. So those are the two that I would want to see in a theater. More Nobody than Together, just because it's an action movie. I feel like that'd be just more fun to see in a theater. But those are movies that I'd like to support for sure. So I don't know. We'll see. As things start to unfold, I'll really have to gauge where I feel like I am. And just, I don't think that I'm on the same wavelength with you in terms of mask. I feel like if I'm in a situation where I'm in a movie theater, I'll be able to ignore the mask pretty quickly. I won't be shoving my face with popcorn, but that's okay.
Yeah. Personal preferences.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like,
so
I am happy to wear the mask and about. I'm not an anti-mask.
It's just a weird time where you're trying to figure out for yourself, like, what is the world ready for? What am I personally ready for? Where do those things overlap? Like, I know a lot of places are open for like dine-in restaurant, things like that. And I'm like, I'm not there yet. The weather's nice. Let's do outside as long as we can. And yeah, but we are not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about Fletch.
Oh, we're here to talk about Fletch. All right. And you know what's funny? This was the first time I've ever seen Fletch in its entirety.
Really?
Which I didn't realize until I was watching it. And I mean, if I had seen it in its entirety, like, I'm pretty sure I have seen like the first half of Fletch many times, but I just have not followed through, I guess, or seen all of the first Fletch. So like by the time we got to the third act of Fletch, I was kind of like, oh, so this is what's happening. This is what it's all about. Okay. All right. And as I was like watching it and processing, it occurred to me why I maybe never made it and why I always just kind of wrote it off as a movie that I had seen already.
Yeah. When I was watching it, and I feel like I may have watched it within the past 10 years and, retained enough of the information that on this watch, I was maybe a little more familiar with it. And I was surprised because when I watched Fletch Lives, I was like, have I seen this? And then as soon as it's going, I'm like, I have seen this, but there are things that like I definitely don't remember as well that kind of come in and out. I think that a lot of the televangelist stuff I remembered more. Some of his little like jokes that he says, I seem so familiar to me. I don't know.
Because you've seen other Chevy Chase movies?
Yeah, right. And I don't know. And I'm wondering, Dan, also if you never got through it all the way before, because I mean, I don't know about you. I watched it on Stars, and at the beginning where they say the rating of it, which it's rated PG, I think. Did you also take a picture of it?
I sure did. I'm looking at it right now.
Adult content, adult language, violence, and outdated cultural depiction.
Yeah. No, was it, did they have the same warning on Fletch Lives?
You know, I didn't pay attention on Fletch Lives.
Yeah, I was going to say I didn't pay attention on Fletch Lives, but it certainly belongs on Fletch Lives.
Yes, absolutely. That was a weird one to watch in our current climate, our current political climate.
That one, I think, pretty much past 1989 when it came out. Like, that one I don't think aged well like 5 years later.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they were really thinking about how well these things were going to age when they did them, because it's all KKK jokes, which, you know, it of course reminded me a lot of the scene in Django Unchained with, you know, the group of people.
Yeah. Jonah Hill and Walton Goggins.
Yeah. And, you know, and it's like, it needs to be done right. And in this case, with Jeffrey Lewis, who is a fixture on the Ruined Childhoods podcast now. These
days, yeah. Geez, we got to do Lawnmower Man soon.
I am for it, just so you know.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, and then there's neo-Nazis and, Nazi biker gangs.
It's all, and like, you know, and it's just like Chevy Chase sleeping with one, you know, attractive female lead after the next. And so I guess, John, if you wanted to go forth with a synopsis, we could do that before we kind of take this one apart.
And before I do the synopsis, first of all, this synopsis will spoil the ending of the movie, so keep that in mind. But also, while I was writing it, if there are errors that I have trouble getting through, I have to explain. I've had a very, very hectic week, and just today, Dan, I don't know if I told you about this, but I took the FAA exam to get my drone pilot license. And did I tell you about this?
No, I didn't know you were going to drone flying school.
Yeah. Well, for my work, we decided that drone photography was something that we need. We have a building project coming up, and a lot of construction will be going on, and figured it'd be good to document this from the air. And so got a drone, and in order to fly a drone for business purposes, you have to have the FAA Part 107 license certificate. So I, have been studying for the past week or two, and I went to a testing facility today and had to do this test. Yeah, it was great. I haven't taken a test in a long time. So it was very nerve-wracking, and I passed, and now it's something that I'm able to do. And so my mind has been in a lot of different places. I'm also about to move to a new home, so that, of course, is just a lot going on. I'm not trying to make excuses for why a synopsis may or may not be great, but I'm just saying I wrote it and I think it's good, but it's possible that it's not. and that I like forgot to finish it or something. So we're just gonna go with it. Cue the Faltermeyer music right now. Erwin Fletcher is an investigative journalist for a Los Angeles newspaper and is in the middle of a hot scoop about the drug trade on the Santa Monica beaches, where he is currently working undercover. When he is identified by Alan Stanwyck, a wealthy aviation executive, as the kind of guy who would do anything for money, he offers Fletch a once-in-a-lifetime offer. Alan wants Fletch to come to his home, shoot him dead, and take off on a flight to South America, explaining that he has bone cancer and wants to die before it takes over his body, but in a way that still gets his life insurance fully paid out. Still pretending to be a Santa Monica derelict, Fletch accepts the job and knows right away that this is too fishy to be a regular thing. Doing his Fletch thing, he does a great deal of snooping both in Los Angeles and in Utah, and discovers that Alan Stanwyck is in cahoots with local law enforcement to run drugs from South America to the local dealers, meaning that his two areas of interest are colliding. All the while, Fletch is falling for Stanwyck's wife, and she is also definitely interested. And as it turns out, Alan just wanted Fletch to show up at his place to kill him, because they are roughly the same build and could stand in as Stanwyck's corpse, so he could fake his own death and run off to South America with his other wife from Utah. Fletch being Fletch, he figures it all out and puts an end to Stanwyck's plan and releases his article all about the drug trade involving local law enforcement. So, Chevy Chase plays Erwin Fletcher. Joe Don Baker is Chief Jerry Carlin. Dana Wheeler Nicholson is Gail Stanwyck, the wife of Alan Stanwyck, who's played by Tim Matheson. Richard Libertini is Frank Walker. George Wendt plays Fat Sam, who's distributing drugs to the local dealers. Gina Davis plays Larry, who works at the paper and is kind of Fletch's, right hand when he's at the offices. And, a very early Gina Davis role, and she's fantastic. Gina Davis, another fixture of this podcast recently.
Oh, yeah. We're big Gina Davis fans.
Yeah. So anyway, what did I miss?
Let's see.
The Underhills?
The Underhills. Yeah.
There's an ongoing joke about this tennis club that the Stanwicks belong to, and there's a guy, I forget his first name, but his last name is Underhill, and he's very mean to the wait staff. So Fletch, being a quick thinker, says that he is a guest at the club of the Underhills and to charge everything to them, which really racks up a bill and pisses off the Underhills. It's just a funny running gag.
Yeah. It's a funny running gag. And there's the Underhills, there's the
alimony.
Right. Yeah. With the lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah. Fletch owes money, to his ex-wife, and, her lawyer is always trying to shake Fletch down for it. So, yeah.
There's that. Yeah. There's the I guess the subplot with the doctor, or it's not really a subplot. It's just when he's trying to.
Well, I'd say one of the more memorable scenes and one of the most quoted scenes is when he goes and is trying to get Alan Stanwyck's files from his doctor's office. And I guess before that, Fletch goes to see his doctor, Stanwyck's doctor, and starts trying to get information about it, which of course he can't give him because it's confidential. And meanwhile is getting a rectal exam because he ordered the full package, I guess. And so when he's going as pretending to be a doctor so that he can get these files, sees the board and every doctor's name begins with Rosen. And what I always remember from this is how he's the one of the nurses or staff there asks what his name is, and he says Dr. Rosenpenis under his breath.
Yeah.
And then says Dr. Rosen, which I think Dr. Rosen actually gets mentioned more, but Dr. Rosen penis is my favorite.
Yeah. It's really like he just mumbles it, and it is actually it's that one's pretty funny.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And there's the whole like farcical scene where he gets called in to help with an autopsy, just like hold a kidney or something, and he passes out, and like the Stanwyck's doctor ends up in there, and he's in like the room next to it where there's a window, and he's trying to hide himself. But what that doctor and the guy doing the autopsy are like doing silently in the background is just really funny to watch. They're just
so
kind of
funny.
goofing.
Well, the M. Emmett Walsh plays the Stanwyck's doctor. And he's like eating a sandwich, and he's like drinking coffee like over the body that's cut open.
It's ridiculous. It's so funny.
Yeah. I that part I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think that the movie itself, just as a whole, is, I'd say, mostly fun to watch. You know, if you just have to be prepared for an 80s Chevy Chase type of situation, and that's what you're gonna get. Yeah,
it's fun. But yeah, there are some jokes in there that really don't age well.
No.
But
I think that's the case with most Chevy Chase stuff.
A lot of Chevy Chase, yeah. And something I noticed while watching it, and I mean also Fletch Lives, was, and I watched them kind of in reverse. So a lot of my like summary notes are under Fletch, but Chevy Chase doesn't do vulnerable.
No.
Like the closest he gets in this is not necessarily when his life is in danger, like one of the multiple times his life is in danger, but when he's standing in front of the cut open body and which even then he's not playing vulnerable. He just kind of wisecracks until he passes out. Yeah.
No, I think that Chevy Chase, and look, I'm not going to be writing any essays on this, but I think that when it comes to like the 80s, especially, Chevy Chase was the actor with the highest amount of big dick energy. And I'm sure that like, I'm sure he's not the first. I bet that like Cary Grant or, like there's somebody like that also who's just kind of like one of those, extremely confident, doesn't think twice before making a pass on a woman, like, and it always works type of situation in a movie. I think that Chevy Chase definitely is one of the more prominent examples of big dick energy.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, but and I think, and I don't know if you want to go into the Fletch Lives plot before we really start breaking this down.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah, this one I kept really short and I didn't spoil it. Right. After Fletch finds out that his aunt has passed away and left him her plantation in Louisiana, he considers early retirement to live the easy life. When he gets to town, he finds nothing but trouble. He ends up spending the night with his aunt's lawyer and wakes up to find her dead. The small town being as it is, the neighbors don't take kindly to Fletch and lock him up, but manages to get let out by Ham Johnson, who warns him that the locals don't like outsiders. But these locals who are trying to run Fletch out of town don't seem to realize who he is and the lengths he will go to in order to find out all of the answers. So that's all I really did. Hal Holbrook plays Ham Johnson, who's great. He's always good. Julianne Phillips plays Becky Culpepper. Arlie Ermey is Jimmy Lee Farnsworth, a big time televangelist. Tex Cobb plays a character only known to us as Ben Dover. He is a local. Well, he works at the coroner's office.
He works at the morgue.
He works at the morgue. He's a Nazi biker. He's fun.
Yeah.
So Dan, Oh, and then of course Jeffrey Lewis is the KKK leader. Okay, there's somebody who we talked about on an episode a long time ago. What are you about to say?
Well, I'm thinking of the one, the big cast member that
Don Brockett?
Mentioned. No, Cleavon Little.
I'm not there yet, Dan.
Oh, well, that's what I was. Okay, I didn't want to interrupt.
Well, Cleavon Little plays Calculus, who is the the house guy. I wouldn't call him a housekeeper because that place is a dump, but he kind of had an arrangement with Fletch's aunt to live there and kind of hang out, be a pal.
Yeah.
And right,
I guess we don't want to spoil anything, so.
Right, yeah, exactly. So the sheriff is played by Don Brockett, Chef Brockett from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw him. I was like, is that Chef Brockett? The like crazy chef who's just like, it was the Death to Smoochie episode. That's what it was, because Spinner reminded me a lot of Chef Brockett, and I wondered if Don Brockett was like a Spinner Dunn type of situation where he was just like, part of like the local crime family, but just loved like Mr. Rogers or whatever, and so he put him on the show as the chef who like bakes a cake in an episode, and it's like, what is this guy doing?
Not for nothing, but Sheldon Mopes is a very, like, there's like a spiritual connection between him and Fred Rogers. But yeah, we digress into Death to Smoochie, which is so easy to do.
Yeah, absolutely. But no, I saw Don Brockett and I was like, it can't be. And of course it is. It absolutely is. And we also have a small appearance from Richard Belzer, which is always fun. Phil Hartman is in it briefly.
Yeah.
It's a pretty packed cast.
Yeah, and I feel like the plot, as wrong as so much of Fletch Lives is, I almost felt like I liked the plot a little bit more than Fletch. There were less holes in it for me.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of plot-wise, I enjoyed them both. I have a real soft spot for like movies about investigative journalists or, like a detective situation. And both of these movies are comedy noirs. There's the narration from him throughout both of them that's very much from like the film noir trope, and it works. It kind of like comes in and out as needed, and doesn't really get in the way of anything. They're not trying too hard to make it noir-y aside from that, but
right,
yeah, it's a lot of fun. What I liked about the first one is it's always I thought that it was interesting that Tim Matheson's character was trying to do this whole scheme and Fletch just happened to get involved, and the way that it tied into like this thing that he was trying to figure out but couldn't crack for such a long time. I just thought that it was pretty clean. This one, when it like came to the end, I was like, okay. It was just, it seemed like it was trying to find opportunities to be shocking, and pushing the boundaries with things like people who are Confederate Army enthusiasts. And yeah.
Although I have to say, like, between that and Borat 2 and a lot of these like Southern heritage things that we've been seeing about, I had this aha moment where it's like, oh yeah, no wonder so many of these like congressional candidates and senatorial candidates have like embarrassing yearbook photos from their like Southern high schools and colleges where they, are in blackface or are wearing Klan hoods. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that makes more, and they're really embracing that. And I feel like to a certain extent, like that wasn't necessarily exaggerated.
Yeah, but I think that the difference between something like Fletch Lives and Borat 2 is that Borat 2 is really trying to say something and like expose something.
Oh,
and
yeah, I'm not comparing
Okay.
like the message. I'm saying for me, it was like, I was like, okay, I'm like, this is not the first time I'm seeing something like this where, you know, like these like Southern families are, you know, they celebrate the heritage of the Confederate Army and wear the uniforms of the Confederacy. And then I was thinking about like all of these, like, oh yeah, we found a yearbook picture of this guy in blackface, and we found a yearbook picture of this guy wearing a Klan outfit. And I was like, oh yeah. So I guess it's just like, that's just been part of the culture.
Yeah.
But yeah. So, and I guess, you know, what you're pointing out about how Stanwyck like hires Fletch.
Right.
To me, it just seemed all like it's just so convenient that of all of the
of course.
junkies that he's watching, he first of all picks the one who looks least like a junkie. Now, of course, he's the only one who's not involved of the junkie population that we meet in the movie. He's the only one not involved in the whole scam.
Right. Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, he's the only one who's capable of pulling off remembering, you know, all of the things he has to do, probably. But like, I mean, you're right. It's convenient, but.
And he does not, I mean, I don't know. I'm like, I'd be suspicious of this guy being a junkie.
Yeah.
Like, really? I mean,
Yeah,
I guess like, you know, you can't judge a book by its cover, and I guess some junkies hide it better than others, but it's like, yeah, it just kind of struck me as odd, and like it just didn't fit for me.
Yeah, I mean, what this movie or what these movies really are, it's opportunities to showcase Chevy Chase playing a Chevy Chasey kind of character in funny, different disguises.
Goldie Hawney, Chevy Chasey.
Yeah, giving him a chance to like, you know, show off different weird voices and affectations he can do, and
come up with his names and do the mumbling thing.
Do all the mumbling stuff. Yeah, right. Because it's like Fletch could get away with all of this stuff because of his big dick energy.
Right.
And, yeah.
Like, he's not even panicking during the car, which, by the way, I love me a good 80s action comedy car chase.
Oh.
It's like so specific, and I feel like, and I mean, and this didn't come out that long before Beverly Hills Cop.
Well, right. Speaking of Harold Faltermeyer, the same guy who does the score.
Well, right, but it's almost like this feels like it would be inspired by Beverly Hills Cop, but Beverly Hills Cop came out after Fletch.
Right. Yeah.
But because Eddie Murphy kind of had that, like, if there was anyone else in the 80s who had big dick energy, it was Eddie Murphy.
That is true.
Though Eddie Murphy plays, I feel like Eddie Murphy, I don't want to say like became the characters, because there's still a lot of Eddie Murphy in Axel Foley.
Yeah. I think that Chevy Chase is a little bit more of, you know, that definition of that like truly cocky, you know, person in the characters that he plays. I feel like Eddie Murphy sometimes gets more comfortable in the characters, and I'm thinking a lot of like Trading Places, Coming to America, where he, you know, you believe him as these characters, whereas this,
Yeah.
it's just like, oh, it's Chevy Chase doing his Chevy Chase thing.
Right. Which, and I think it's one of the things that, I mean, after watching Fletch, I was thinking about like, all right, well, what are the Chevy Chase performances that I've really enjoyed? Because it bothered me in this. And like, I like a lot of elements of Fletch, but like, it got to the point where Chevy Chase, where it bothered me that he was just Chevy Chase doing Chevy Chase. And I was thinking about the movies where I liked him, and I thought about Vacation, and the Vacation movies, there's like stakes, and he's more of a real person. Like Clark Griswold is more of a real person. And I thought about Three Amigos and Dusty Bottoms and how he's just kind of like lovably dumb in that.
Right.
And he's like, it's almost the nicest character he's probably ever played.
Yeah.
Is Dusty in Three Amigos.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think that what the difference is that this is a Chevy Chase, like he's probably in he's probably in almost like every scene, or maybe even every shot. And things like Vacation, it's like, you know, you have Beverly D'Angelo, you have the rotating cast of characters, right?
Randy Quaid.
Occasionally you have your Randy Quaid. And then here you just have Chevy Chase really just being the focus.
It's nice when Gina Davis is
she's
on screen.
so wonderful. I mean, Fletch acts wildly inappropriate around women, and it made me so cringe so hard. And I'm just like, oh, poor Larry, Gina Davis's character. But she's like, you know, she's just chipper. She likes him.
It made me wonder, actually, because the character name is Larry. It made me wonder if that role was originally written for a man to play, or if the character. I'm not familiar with the books, Gregory MacDonald's novels. I'm not familiar with them, but I was thinking about it and wondering, and because it's like there's not it's not really a, like, aside from that Chevy Chase or like Fletch is hitting on her,
right?
There's not much more that would define it. So I wonder if it was just like, and I couldn't find anything on this, but if the character had not been written for a woman and somehow Gina Davis ended up with the role, and the movie's better for it.
Yeah, I mean, I also know that Chevy Chase, and I don't know how much he had to do with any of the scripting. I should probably look that up. But, I mean, just written by Andrew Bergman, based on Fletch by Gregory MacDonald. That's the only thing I've got. But I know that he likes to play a lot with, of course, like words and funny names. And I could totally see a situation where he's just like, hey, it would be funny if her character's name is Larry. And then it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Or he calls her it, and maybe it wasn't scripted that way, but he just did it anyway.
Who knows? I don't know, but I like the character. You know, she's not a very developed character, and does not even make an appearance in Fletch Lives.
Well, this is just a couple years after Tootsie.
Mm-hmm.
That was 82.
Yep.
Yeah, so just a few years after Tootsie.
Same year as Transylvania 65000.
Same year as Transylvania 65000, where she is not a major role. So she's like, you know, about to really pop, but she is not quite there yet. So she does play, like, you know, this is that short window where she's actually playing smaller roles.
Yeah.
Before she's just like one of the biggest stars out there. Yeah, no, I mean, when Fletch Lives came out, I mean, her 1988, is that when Beetlejuice was? Or is that
80? Yeah, Beetlejuice was 88, so was Accidental Tourist.
Right. Yeah. So she had quite a 1988, and yeah.
But yeah, great to see Gina Davis in the movie. You know, Joe Don Baker, just one of those kind of, you know, reliable character actors.
Yeah.
And Tim Matheson, who is also pretty good at playing smug.
Tim Matheson's great.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm a Tim Matheson fan, but
Yeah.
he is great at playing smug.
Absolutely. I mean, Animal House, maybe one of his less smug performances, but
Animal House?
I mean, I'd say compared to this, maybe a little.
Equally smug, I would say. And
Equally smug.
Yeah. The West Wing.
The Very Brady sequel.
Oh, he's so good in that. Oh, man. Love the Brady Bunch movies.
We've talked about this before. A movie that should not have been good, but is so great. And a sequel that, I'm so glad it was made.
Never in a million years would anyone have guessed that a movie like that would have been made from the Brady Bunch. But
they did it exactly right.
Thank the movie gods. It's been done. Yes. So.
Yeah. Fletch Lives. Let's just talk a little bit more about that real quick. Because we didn't really talk about the whole televangelist situation. So, a woman approaches him about buying. She has a potential buyer for his plantation at a very large sum of money. And she's like, you should take this. This place is kind of a dump. Like, it's a lot of money. Just take it. It's all good. And he refuses, suspects it for being very fishy, which he's correct in thinking that, and is trying to figure out who's trying to buy it. And he mostly suspects the Jimmy Lee Farnsworth, who is a very famous evangelical preacher, a healer, and
former used car salesman.
Yeah, there's a lot of things about him that don't add up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really funny scenes that come out of him Fletch trying to get information out of that. Like when he is there, I forget the name of his fake preacher healer character that he makes up on the spot. He never thinks ahead with the names. He always seems to come up with them right in the moment.
Maxwell Hauser,
yeah. No, and he has this set of fake teeth that he uses every now and then. I like that some of the costumes and stuff come back from movie to movie. It makes it feel like the character is a little bit more real, because somebody like him would have, just a couple of wigs and stuff like that, and dip into that well every now and then.
And I like that we see when he tries to expense it all at the end of the first one.
Yeah, that's all pretty funny.
And Richard Libertini, by the way, does a really nice job as the editor of the paper, as Frank. He's great. I'm so glad that he's as much in the second one as he actually is, because he could easily not be in that movie at all and it'd be fine. But he's great. He kind of does. It's Al Powell in Die Hard 2, where it's the movie takes place somewhere else, but we still have to have this character involved. Right. So we'll just call him for help every now and again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's really cool. Like I said, I love investigative journalism movies. If there's a movie that takes place somewhere in a newsroom, I am all about it. I just love the energy of them, especially 70s or 80s newsrooms. In the case of the paper, 90s newsroom. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Or Coke filled, if we were talking about the paper, but True. Coca-Cola, not cocaine.
Right.
So, Dan, you had alluded earlier to a consideration to bring back this property. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, I guess first we should probably talk about the current plans, and there have been for decades now, various Fletch prequels and sequels in the works, famously with Kevin Smith at Miramax, and he was going to have Jason Lee as Fletch.
Yeah.
And
I'm just going to read the IMDb trivia bit about that.
Go for it.
So it just says, at one point, Kevin Smith had written a script for a prequel to the film, which with Jason Lee playing Fletch. However, Miramax producer Harvey Weinstein wouldn't let him, citing Lee's lack of box office appeal. Smith then considered directing Ghosts of Girlfriends Past for Disney in 2003.
Jason Lee probably wouldn't blow him.
Oh, ugh. Ugh. At the
Harvey
request of Ben
Weinstein.
Affleck, who was set to star. This didn't sit well with Weinstein, who allowed Smith to make his Fletch prequel instead, as long as he got Affleck to star in it. It was going to be called Fletch 1, and it briefly went into production, but was canceled when Affleck ultimately decided to stay with Disney, even though the film would later be made without him. Fletch 1 ended up with Warner Brothers, but has remained in development hell since. And Dan, I wasn't aware, or maybe I was aware, but have forgotten about I'm starting to remember a little bit. What's going on with Fletch currently?
Well, so now there's talks again with Miramax, which I didn't know that name was even still being used, but Miramax and John Hamm bringing Fletch back to, and this is as of last summer was when this was news. So it's still it still could be happening. And I think John Hamm is a good choice. He's certainly a name that came to mind when thinking of who could, and
really,
and I have to say, in terms of Fletch, well, he's not my top choice, but he's a name that came to mind. And in terms of, oh geez, I totally lost my train of thought.
In terms of something.
And what were we talking about before I started saying
John Hamm? John Hamm was one of the actors that you would have considered to play Fletch. Before then, Miramax.
So Miramax is doing a Fletch reboot with John Hamm, who I think would be good. But so the case with this, so usually it's hard, and I think we talked about this a little bit with My Cousin Vinny. When you have like an iconic performance, it's really challenging to recreate something like that, and especially with Fletch, which is so Chevy Chase. And you know, one could not argue that this role is like this and Clark Griswold, probably the two defining Chevy Chase roles. But I think that Chevy Chase has lost so much goodwill.
Yeah.
That you could replace him and no one would complain.
Yeah.
And I think you know, John Hamm is a fine option, especially if you're kind of pushing more towards the mystery, less towards, although John Hamm can do comedy great, but he would play this as a character. However, he's not my top choice. And I say, why not? Like a Fletch reboot, like investigative journalism, mystery, comedy. It's got a lot of great elements, and you know, these things are you know, not guaranteed crowd pleasers, but why not? So I wrote down 4 names for my possible Fletch replacements. First, an honorable mention to both Kristen Wiig and Kate McKinnon, who I thought if they ever gender swapped Fletch, especially Kate McKinnon. I think Kate McKinnon would be absolutely hilarious. She'd be so great. But in terms of casting, recasting Fletch as a man, my top choice, who I think would actually be brilliant and would redefine the role, is Andy Samberg.
Oh yeah, he'd be great.
Andy Samberg as Fletch totally clicks for me. And then the other names I had down, because I was like, oh, you know, what are some different directions you could go with? Not someone who's kind of doing, like Andy Samberg, I think could give us the Fletch that we expect without it being Chevy Chase.
Right.
I think Keegan-Michael Key could be a really, I would love to see him do that type of role where he's playing a journalist, and you know, he kind of gets to be funny, but he's really like focused on being an investigative journalist. I thought Adam Driver, for some reason.
Oh, that's interesting.
I was thinking about it. I was like, Adam, I guess I was watching like Logan Lucky recently, and there's a couple of things where I feel like Adam Driver can do humor. He can do comedic roles. And I know, we see him either playing like serious or like he's Kylo Ren, but I think he can do here. I'm also thinking of his role in Midnight Special, which even though it's not a comedic role, he kind of, it's a little bit, there's a little something different from Adam Driver in that. So I think Adam Driver would be good. I was thinking about it, Aziz Ansari as well, as someone who I was like, he's kind of got that, like, he'd almost bring that same, like, that kind of Chevy Chase energy of kind of always having a wisecrack to say and always being able to talk his way out of situations. So that was where I went. And I really didn't have any other ideas other than to go back to the novels. Like the Fletch Lives wasn't based on any of the novels, and there's all these novels. So this could really be a great, a solid franchise, and it could work, it could work like big screen. Why not? And and even though it would work fine as something that like Netflix or Prime or Hulu produces, I still think there's something about like these kind of long awaited like reboots and revivals just kind of dropping on streaming services that feels like kind of anticlimactic. So I think I would want to see Fletch in the theater, though Fletch could also work as a series, or you could do it. Well, the type of series I was thinking about was something like Sherlock, where each episode of Sherlock is, and this is the BBC Sherlock, where it's almost like a mini movie, each episode, and they don't really have that much connection to each other. You can kind of jump around with Sherlock. Right. So I think like if you were going to do a Fletch series, that's how it would work is it kind of being those like, whatever hour long, 70-minute long mini movies. But okay. That's cool. What I would do. And not having read the novels, had I read the novels, I would probably
kind of want to read the novels, though.
Yeah,
I would just hope that I could do it without thinking of Chevy Chase as being Fletch. Yeah.
It kind of depends on how the book is written, and I know that Gregory MacDonald thought highly, or at least approved of Chevy Chase's performance. But I have to imagine the character is not written to be Chevy Chase in the books. So, I'm definitely interested to check one out. Sounds like a good beach read for the summer.
It does. Yeah.
Get your Fletch on.
So I actually did think of another sequel, the third in the Fletch trilogy. I have not read any of the books, so this is not from any particular source material. And I have not done any research to see if maybe this actually was. But I thought that a really good follow-up to Fletch Lives would be Fletch Dies. And it would make sense that this would take place, 32 years later or whatever. So the plot that I had in mind is that Fletch is found dead, and an investigative journalist at the paper that Fletch worked at finds out that something is left to them in Fletch's will. And it's a video that Fletch made explaining that something from his past and some people from his past are, he thinks that they're out to get him, and he's concerned that something is going on, and he's worried for his life. He's not as young as he was, so he isn't maybe as able to, wriggle out of situations as easily, climb out of fire escapes, if it were. And this young journalist has to figure out what's going on. But in order to solve a mystery of Fletch's death, you have to think like Fletch to do it. So That's my idea. Are you looking up the titles of the books to see if there was a Fletch dies?
Oh,
'Cause I surely didn't do that.
I just kind of Googled Fletch dies and didn't come up with anything.
That's surprising because it seems like such a logical next step for the Fletch series. But no, I and I hadn't really thought too much about casting decisions. I think that somebody like Kate McKinnon would also be good, as a younger Fletch type, somebody who could definitely pull that off. There's a lot of really great young actors out there who I think would be good. I think that Beanie Feldstein would also be pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. Somebody who's like really low at, at
kind
the
of
newspaper.
like Robin in the paper, like the intern.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Where it's just like, why am I being left to figure this out? And, it's like, of course, there's some sort of reason, some sort of link that makes it make sense.
She would not be his daughter.
Nope.
No. And we know what you're thinking.
No. Of course, you start to think like, oh, what about, the son of Fletch? And it's just like, nope. No. Yeah.
No, yeah, because otherwise, it's like, what? Otherwise, just make a remake.
No, and I think like, hey, you could get Chevy Chase in for an afternoon to film one segment that ends up being like just talking into a camera kind of thing.
He wouldn't have to leave the house.
He wouldn't. No.
Because also, if it's taking place present day, he would probably just record it on a phone.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's what I got.
I like that
I thought
idea.
That'd be fun.
I think it's a nice way to revive the property and like reboot the franchise, because then, of course, you set yourself up with, for sequels with this kind of new Fletch. Maybe part of the inheritance is the nickname of Fletch.
Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? But I don't know. That's what I got.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds good. I like it. But hey, it was nice to revisit parts of Fletch.
Yeah, I know exactly. I don't think that I'll watch it again.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I can't. There's not a lot of movies where I would really say that about. But after I watched it, I was like, and I think I'm good on Fletch. I'm good on Fletch.
But I would totally see Fletch dies.
I would. Oh yeah, thank you. And I would be so curious to see what they do with Fletch for real, whatever they end up doing. I'm kind of glad that Kevin Smith didn't do something with Fletch. I don't know. I mean, Kevin Smith does his Kevin Smith thing, and once it starts to like cross over with other properties, it starts to get a little funky, with the exception of Live Free or Die Hard, where he's just an actor.
Oh yeah. I frequently forget that he's in that.
Yeah, and he's great in that. But I think that there's, a lot of his stuff, there's the vibe of it is just, it needs to just kind of stay on its own. And I do think that in the, early 2000s, when this was going around, I think that Jason Lee would have been a totally fine new Fletch.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I like Jason Lee.
I like certain things that he's done.
I mean, yeah, well, I when I say I like Jason Lee, I'm basically thinking about the Kevin Smith movies and Almost
Mallrats,
Famous.
Yeah, Chasing Amy, Almost Famous, he's great in. Yeah. Yeah. No, he's done some good work. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never seen Kissing a Fool, so I can't can't speak, or Stealing Harvard.
Stealing Harvard. I'm going to tee up what we're going to be doing on our next episode by letting everybody know that for the first time since February of 2020, Dan and I are actually going to be in the same place together.
Yeah.
Yeah. We are going to be
going.
No, we are planning this. We are going out to stay at a cabin up here at Mount Hood, just outside of Portland. and I'm very excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if all goes according to plan, we will record our episode together there. We will see what the situation is like, but we'll play it by ear. But Dan, we want to tell everyone what we're going to be doing on that next episode.
Well, we will be suitably talking about Cabin Boy.
That's
1994, starring Chris Elliott. Cabin Boy.
Oh, I haven't seen Cabin Boy in so long, and I'm really excited to watch it again.
I haven't either. I'm a little excited. I'm a little scared. I'm a little confused, but
Okay.
but we're gonna check out Cabin Boy. With Chris Elliott has had a really steady career in his 6 seasons on Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
So I think it's great to look back at this point in his career, and this the only movie where he played the starring role.
Yeah.
That I can think of.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a fascinating career. I read, I don't know if he has more than one book, but I read a book that he wrote about his life and his career that was excellent, and just a big fan of him and his spirit and his family. His daughters are also both very, very talented. His father also was a huge comedic talent back in the day, and I'm really excited to visit this one. So from a cabin, we will be recording our episode on Cabin Boy. We know it's not about a cabin, but it has the word cabin in it.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing. And if you've got a problem with that, shoot us an email at ruinedchildhoodspod@gmail.com, or you can check us out on Instagram at ruinedchildhoodspod.
Yeah, check out all of our links on our link tree, linktr.ee/ruinedchildhoods. We've got everything right there. But yeah, we would love to hear from you, and please shoot us an email or something, and let us know what you think about Fletch, Chevy Chase, or any of the other movies the other 116 movies we've covered.
A lot of movies. Well, more than 100. Some of those have been franchises, so
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Probably closer to 150 or more.
A lot of movies.
Probably more.
A lot of movies.
A lot of movies.
So
this episode was a 2-in-1, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. So there we go. All right. Anyway, before we start doing the math here, I think it's time to say good journey.
Yeah. Well, Dan, as you are in a comedic car chase, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.